Welcome back to my universe, to my um a state of thought, if you will. Uh, Not a state, a state. Welcome to my. Anyways, I made the fatal mistake of triggering a how would you say, a undeserved dopamine hit, in that I told someone that I was doing a podcast or an hour of vocal journaling, however you want to look at it. I don't really know necessarily how I feel about it yet, but um, it's been a while. Um, it didn't sit well with me. That, of course, anything that I commit to, I quit pretty early on into it. But if you think about it in the long scope of things, I've returned, which is what matters. I don't know necessarily where to look. Like, looking up here feels weird. But so yeah, the goal is that um if I say I'm going to commit myself to something, I really want to commit myself to it, which I suppose I struggle with, but also I don't. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like two different people. I am one person though. With that being said, I suppose I am multiple different people because the memory of all my past selves lives on within my head. Um, but every day I'm constantly changing. You know, everything's constantly changing, and so am I. With that being said, I'll start us off with a quote from my man Heraclitus, or maybe it's Heraclitus. I'm not too familiar. No man steps foot in the same river twice, for he is not the same man, and that is not the same river. And I was thinking about that a lot. Uh, I'm a Oregon boy, small town Oregon kid. Um, I grew up on the northwest coast of Oregon, and sometimes when I feel like I need to connect to myself or maybe one of my past selves, that's where I find it to be easiest. You know, I'm most familiar there. There's this thing I've always since I first said it, but it was that everything feels the same, but nothing looks familiar. Does that make sense? So like, even though I'm going back to these places and uh, you know, the actual way that I'm observing it is different from when I observed in past, still the same place. And by that metric, you could say, even though that, you know, any observation of me is different from observation of me right now is different than an observation of my past selves, but they're still me, you know. Anyways, um, to be completely fair, I also decided to, you know, I was not. I hate to use the cop out like, oh, I wasn't like in a good place, but like, this is something that means something to me. And then you ask me, well, how do you know it means something to you? Well, I know it means something to me because when it's removed from my day to day, or the day to day feeling isn't that of accomplishment or plan, it's that of like regret, or like that feeling you get right before you have a like test in school or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm not gonna produce the best work, I didn't want to produce anything, you know? And I I also have to, and I'm sure as a young man this is where I've struggled a lot in my life, but if I want to make this what I envision it, or like what I want it to be, or whatever metric we should measure it by, I have to give just as much. You know, I struggle with vulnerability a lot. Um, Theo Vaughn once said this thing when I think he was outside an AA meeting, is the way he described it, but or maybe during one or something like that. And uh, this man told him that he was tough to pet, and that resonated with me a lot. You know, so sometimes, a lot of the time in my life, I've kind of felt out of place, or I'm gonna take on the stray dog archetype right now. Okay, I'm like a stray dog. Really, everywhere is my home, but it's not like I really have like four walls and a roof that I can consistently go underneath, or I know that my food will be taken care of, or anything, or I don't know if every person I'm gonna walk past it has a handful of some kibble for me, or has a closed palm, and then will slap me to get, because people are real mean to dogs, especially depending on the culture. Well, like stray animals, that is. Yeah, well, it's a conversation for a different day, but it is what it is. So yeah, I guess for a while was, I wasn't willing to kind of come over and sniff the palm of the pod. You know what I'm saying? I just was kind of biting at everyone, mostly myself. But really just biting at myself. So I didn't want to just invoke an hour of pity. It was in the broad scheme of things, it was a pretty big life change I went through. So to and I'm still going through. So to need some time to process it, or and sometimes in life, you know, like picture I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Grown Ups, but there's one point at the beginning of the movie where David Spade goes into a tire and then they roll the tire down the hill, right? So if I'm in that tire and I'm rolling down the hill, it would be really easy for me to know which way I want the tire to roll or whatever if I could take a broader perspective outside of the tire. But I can't see anything except for the revolutions of the tire and the blur of all my senses kind of being disorientated. And that is life change or experience, especially when you're inexperienced, young and inexperienced. I'm kind of a novice in all regards. There's very few things I could say that I actually, um, or I would say that I could confidently say I could do just as good of a job as anyone that I've never met. Does that make sense? Because anyone you've never met, you don't know their skill set. So it's like, they could be better than me. There's only a few things where I would be like, I think I could do this in a way that, it doesn't really matter if anyone is just as good or better than me. This will be really good. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's definitely not life. That's definitely not, you know, decision making in terms of. I'm a good decision maker in the sense that I can make a decision. They're not always gonna be. Not always gonna be a gravy train. My cat's. You wanna say? You wanna say what's up? This is gonna be his first introduction. This is spontaneous. He just crawled over. He's kind of a. Yeah, he's not having a good time. That's okay. We'll talk to you later. His name's Bubba. He was here for me during this disorientating time, and I'm very grateful for him for that. I feel like cats get a bad rap, but also, well, it's just like anything. They get a bad rap, but it's valid because they have those bad characteristics. I'm gonna let him out of my room real quick because I closed the door to record this. I'll be just right back. Okay, I let him out. I forget exactly what I was talking about, but I feel justified for myself, so that's what matters. At the end of the day, this is for the art, not the outcome. And I'm more just speaking to myself. Because oftentimes, because this is where I find myself most. Like when I complete something like this is where I find myself, that like after the completion of it, it's when I find myself most satisfied with myself. Because I know that I did something that I wanted to do in XYZ, but to bring us back to the Heraclitus quote that that is uh or I had it written down, or no man steps foot in the same river twice, for he is not the same man, and that is not the same river. When I find myself up at the Nehalem River, because I'm most familiar with it, this is where I decided to do a lot of reflection. That's also where I kind of psychoanalyzed myself uh that justification I just gave. That's where I psychoanalyzed myself as to like, why am I separating myself from this thing that I claim to enjoy so much, and why do I have a pattern of it, and how is this playing a role into, you know what I'm saying? So those are things that I think about and struggle with. Um, well, here, I'll just read this to you. I found myself here again, in a spot I have grown so fond of, for many different reasons, probably all irrelevant due to the division of true reality, due to the mass amounts of time I spend in memory, as opposed to the one I'm living in. What I mean by that is the memory I'm living in, you know? Because the first thing that I did because it's a spot that I frequent up on the Nehalem River, like this little pullout that I like to go to. And I first went to that spot when I was probably 13 or 14 with my older brother on a trip up there, visiting back when I had moved away. And the way that the you have the main river, and then there's a small creek that connects to it, and when you in this particular spot, you kind of sit on this little peninsula, and you can just watch the water form together. And when I was doing that, I realized that the way that this water is forming together is also the way that I'm merging um, my current consciousness with the consciousness of my past selves, you know? Because the first time that I went there was when I was 13. And then I've been back a couple times with different people, my sister, a young lady I was seeing for a long time, um, my sister's friends, just people that meant a lot to me at certain points. And then I realized that, like this water that's all going into the same, you know what I'm saying? No, you don't know what I'm saying. I need to stop saying that. Like this water that's all forming together. That's the way that I'm forming myself, and though that's good, and I need to acknowledge those aspects, because obviously if I don't, it doesn't matter. They're just going to keep flowing. This water's coming from elsewhere. It leads to here. That's where it's going. But that water being me, all of my euphemisms kind of revolve around water or some sort of thing like that. But if I'm constantly focusing on the water connecting together, then how can I ever focus on where the river's taking me? Does that make sense? I ask. It makes sense to me, you know? Because that spot's so important to me, so when I get there and I start to, dilute it with, past memories of these people being here in the spot with me, or, when I was at the spot the last time, natural progression of events went differently, or the trip was organized in a different way, and that was, and there I was just by myself in this spot that held so much value to me, and then I found myself disregarding the value due to the fact that I was caught up in the value of completely different situations. I don't know. I see. That's also something I struggle with. Is it's like when I really start to when my ideas emerge from me, I almost want to like slump into myself and like almost just disappear. That's why this is important for me. fighting through this. It was kind of a spontaneous moment to do this right now. Admittedly, I was playing video games with my friend Josh, and Josh, he got off to go train. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Love that guy. Um, but he got off to go train, so and I was already sitting here, so I was like, no excuse, and I just turned on the camera, and then now we're 15 minutes into it. I've been trying to journal a lot more. Journal about the way I feel about certain things, or if there's something I'm having a hard time processing. Maybe if I put it out on paper, I can connect the dots easier in a 2D metric, or 2D system, rather. Um, I've been journaling in terms of uh, documenting and logging my dreams the best I can. Um, one of these dreams, let's see, a Prowler transport. Uh, Sleeping next to a lady seemed motherly. I'm climbing around the Prowler and the frame is falling apart. Seemed to be looking for something. I tried to begin doing something good for myself and instantly tainted it with something sad for me. Bad for me. Um, that was from the morning of the 8th, September 8th. That's 5 days ago. I've tried to document my dreams every day since then. And but maybe I'm also dopamine releasing right now, but also maybe there's no one hearing it, so my brain won't process that release the same. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because what I was talking about, how if I want this to, um, you know, serve its purpose fully, then what can I give? And dreams are tough for me because, well, kind of like the stray dog thing, I guess. I'm really trying to push through here. Normally I'd probably scrap this, but I just need to get over this hump. Maybe I can find something interesting to talk about. I've just been working a lot. I've been driving a lot, to be honest. A lot of my weekends, I've just been spent driving all around different parts of Oregon, visiting different parts of my well, really just my dad, my sister. I went to, my sister had a spare ticket, and I went to the Suicide Boys Grey Day tour in Portland at the Moda Center since the last time I've seen myself here. Um, that was a pretty interesting experience. The thing that's most amazing to me about live performances um, is the performer's ability to, because anyone can perform per se, but the, there are certain performers that have a certain control over their crowd, and when you're in this case, like giant group setting, like tens of thousands of people underneath one roof, and there's one person or one, mutual thought that's like controlling and orchestrating the, however you would like to describe it, vibe or energy, or um, it's almost like a spell is cast over the room, and not to say I'm separate from the spell, but sometimes, well, and maybe other people feel this way too, but I feel as if I can kind of poke in and out of the spell, and if I'm under the spell, it's under the, at least within my own head, it's like, you know, I'm participating in the spell willingly, but it's not as if I'm really in the same trance as everyone else. And that's what I find so fascinating, um, or found so fascinating at the Grey Day tour. Those guys, if you're unfamiliar with them, the Suicide Boy, well, really the whole tour, there was like seven. I'm not trying to fan out or anything, but my point is moments like that are also pretty important to me. This is just 20 minutes of nonsense. I don't know what I'm really reflecting on, but moments like that, you know, and the best performers, the point I was trying to make, dude. This is not a good one. While I'm struggling with this, I'm also staring at something in my notebook I'm not avoiding Jester's privilege. I wasn't in a clear enough headspace to sit with myself for that long. Now it's all I can think about again. This is how life works. Don't eat yourself up about it. And I'm realizing that the sentiment of that is that it's true, that this is all I can think about and all that I have been thinking about. And trying to get in this position, or put myself in this position to um, do this for myself. And now that I'm here, I'm again just finding it hard to sit with myself for this amount of time. But I suppose that's the point of me. I was brought to tears the other day by I've always felt as if I've had some sort of divine protection, if that makes sense. You know? In the sense that, well, this is what brought me to tears because and I forget what I was listening to, but someone was reflecting on their life and they were saying, oh, it was the lead singer of Creed, or the original one, the original lead singer. I think maybe they switched. I don't know. Scott Stapp. Wow, what a coincidence! It's sitting there. Um, he was talking because at the beginning of his rock and roll career and the beginning of his journey with Creed, he wasn't necessarily devoted to the idea of Christ or a higher power or anything like that. But for whatever reason, he would put those messages in his music because, uh, in his words, he knew it was right, and that was just what he had to do. And then there was a brief confrontation between him and the rest of the band when people started picking up on that because they were like, whoa, that's not necessarily what we're trying to represent, being like a Christian rock band, because those were the claims, was that Creed was a Christian rock band. And then, you know, but he was just saying it was like, that was, he just was doing it because he knew it was right, even though he wasn't aligning with the life that the message that he was trying to protrude to the world was, even though he wasn't aligning with it. He just knew it was right for some reason. And then as he grows older, he gets sober, he finds his faith more, he it becomes more and more apparent to him why he was doing that and how God was working through him, or and I'm not talking God, he is, his version is, or his view, I believe, is some sort of Christian, but but that's not to say that when I say God, that is what I'm referring to. I think God is supersedes all religion, which you're like, what? But yep, I know, I'm just kind of a crazy guy. Anyways, he was saying that God was working through him even when he wasn't aligned with God, right? And so when I say I've always felt as if I've had a divine protection, and how that brought me to tears was when he said that, I started thinking to myself, I was like, if um if there wasn't something looking out for me, all the dumb and terrible shit I've done, whether on purpose or accident, and the insane detours I've taken that are so off path from, all of my peers. Through all of that, well, I've ended up okay. And it brought me to tears realizing, with that time of reflection, that I'm just going through one of those times again where it was like, how could I get through that without someone looking out for me? And at my moment, or at this moment where I'm feeling like my loneliest, and like, you know, me against the world. There's no one really that cares about me or what I'm doing or anything like that. You know, no one looking out for my best interest or, um, and, and I'm not saying that to say I necessarily expect anyone to, because I know as a young man that's my job. No one's coming to save me. No one's, and all of those times before I saved myself. I pulled myself out of those situations, but not without help, not without opportunity that I didn't see was placed out for me, to bring me here where I am. And I'm just in another one of those places right now, at my lowest, where I feel um, like I don't know where to go or what to do or what's going on. Someone's here looking out for me, man. Someone's got some sort of plan for me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm working hard to try to fulfill that plan that they got for me. And though I can't see the way that they're kind of, kicking me in the ass one way or another towards the trajectory of that rocket ship they're going to shoot me out of, that is what wherever I'm supposed to end up, you know? I truly have held the faith that I'm divinely protected. And I'm not immortal. Someone could walk up to me and pop me in my mouth right now. It's not what I'm assuming. Or not what I'm trying to project as my message. But rather, you know, we as humans are so quick to self-destruct, so quick to fall deep within ourselves or into a substance or into um, the feeling, or rather lack of true feeling but masked feeling that we can convince ourselves is enough, or you know um, or whether you pour yourself blindly into religion, um, without really taking any accountability. I've dealt, you know, if there's a big red self-destruct button on the desk, I have used every tool in my arsenal to crack the case that sits over that red button. And don't get me wrong, that case is cracked to fuck. That case has enough crack to push through the entire South LA. But it won't break. And that's the divine protection I'm supposedly trying to describe here. And maybe talking about that will really test it. But if that kind of test was supposed to come my way, it wasn't anything that I wasn't supposed to have anyways. And that's all a part of the assisted projection, that assisted divine protection. It's gonna help me on my projection. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Kind of started to freestyle. Um, This is an interesting thing. When I was at the Nehalem River in my little spot, when I first walked up, I had noticed something tied to some of the rocks that I had never seen before. Now, at this particular location, there is a tire swing that someone tied up that you can, or not tire swing, sorry, rope swing that someone tied up that you can use to kind of, sorry, I'm itching my foot, that you can use to, swing off into the water or whatever. So I kind of thought maybe someone just kind of added another expenditure like that, some extra accessory or toy that everyone can use. Um, but obviously there was no one around, so there wasn't anyone using it. So I thought that, well, when people see I'm in this spot, they won't come down here, so I'll be fine, right? Well, I was wrong. It wasn't anything cool like that or nothing. Well, it was kind of cool. It was like a crawdad trap. There we go. It was a crawdad trap that they had tied there because it was right like I was describing the spot, how the kind of side creek connects to the. Well, crawdads are gonna like that because all the bugs are gonna be there because of the running water, so there'll be a lot of food for them. Anyways, at least that's my understanding of it. So it was a good spot for them. Kind of a little cold out for that, but what do I know? But so these three guys start walking down to come collect it, and keep in mind I'm like laid out on this beach. Like I got my backpack open, I have my fucking bong sitting next to me. I've got uh my notebook that I'm journaling in while I'm writing all the shit that I'm reading to. I have my fucking book out, like I'm sitting on a towel. I look like a fucking prima donna. Alright, well these three dudes are walking out to come collect a crawdad trap. And I'm all set up. God, I'm just like my fucking mother. And my first immediate thought when people started emerging from the trees, danger, danger, danger. Who are these um, people I've never seen before creeping up on me? What are they doing? You know what I'm saying? And I'm the type of person, I was raised mind your fucking business, okay? If it doesn't concern you, whatever people are doing, don't pay them too much attention. A friendly nod maybe, but you don't really ask too many questions about nothing. Don't put your nose in places you shouldn't be. That's how I was raised. Especially in public, especially with like people you don't know, especially in places like this. Okay, like in these, like I'm in the middle of the forest in a remote location. I'm not really interested in what this guy's doing. Well, not interested. Well, I became interested, but at the very beginning, I'm more worried about like I don't know. I don't know if it's like danger or if it's just like I'm scared of. Is that a valid fear? I was there by myself, so I'm just one person alone on like this little beach peninsula thing, and then three dudes that I've never met before, never seen, whatever. They just like emerge from the trees to come collect their crawdad trap. Is that a normal thing for me to kind of be like? Maybe scared isn't the right word, or have any fear, but to at least like collect myself in a way that's like ready for confrontation. But I hate that that's my first inclination. And so this thing that starts out as impending doom, like this feeling of unavoidable, whatever I'm feeling. Eventually they collect a trap, and then they walk past below me, and then they collect a different trap that I didn't see they had tied, and now it's a simple, nice conversation. Um, that taught me stuff I didn't know about crawdads. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I ultimately seek, is just that small moment of connection, and like what can I take from all these different people, or uh, orders of thought, or ancient teachings, or fucking bullshit social media memes that I'm reading. What can I take from this? What can I Oh, maybe that's a selfish inclination, but I just want to learn. I'm not take in the sense that I want it for myself, but like, what can I gather? That's from a place of appreciation. I don't think I should get too caught up on that. And maybe that's what's stopping me from a lot of the positive things that could impact me in my life, is just the simple fact that that initial fear of Like when someone approaches into my space, it doesn't matter, man or woman, some way or another, there's something inside of me that instantly is, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm gonna have to put more thought into that. I want to know exactly what that is. A million raw. Oh, as I've described, I was, and I suppose you could argue still kind of am, even though I love to deny, going through an interesting time change in my day-to-day life, and um, a lot of resentment or regret, and I don't know. There's a lot of negative feelings that I have all over my body. You know, um, my white blood cells are attacking them. They're getting them out. I'll be healed up soon, but when you're in a beautiful spot like I was next to the river, you don't want to be weighed down. If I were to go, like, I forget who was describing this, but he was essentially saying, I think it was an MMA fighter. I think it was George St. Pierre. I think George St. Pierre had this mental block or something like that against a specific fighter, and he was talking to a like sports psychologist, and the sports psychologist said this issue that you're having, you're carrying that around with you, and you don't understand how much weight that, you know, you feel slow, you feel all these things or whatever, and so he essentially prescribed George St. Pierre with the task of carrying around a 25-pound rock in his bag or whatever. And that rock symbolized the problem that he was having, so that he could truly understand the the weight that it was having on him. Maybe though it was psychological, if we can't uh, uh, if we can't decipher that, what am I trying to say? The issue he was facing was psychological, but he didn't have any way to rationalize it because he couldn't process through it, and that was part of the reason why he was stuck. Okay, so the same way that sometimes in life, like you can have like physical pain that we have found, like especially a lot of back pain, spinal nerve pain, stuff like this. A lot of the time, a lot of this pain can be healed through the brain. I'm not entirely sure how. I won't try to explain something I don't fully understand. I don't think that is too foreign of a concept for anyone to grasp. So, invert it now. The mental problem he's facing, he doesn't have a way to rationalize it, so he carries it around physically. That way, it's taxing on his body, and over the course of a couple days, you kind of become sick of it, or become aware of it rather. And then over the course of a week, you become sick of it. Like, okay, I'm sick of this problem. Please get it out of here. At first, it was, thanks for bringing it to my attention. But now it's just, it's an extra 25 pounds I'm carrying around for no reason. And, by the end of week one, if he even made it there, George St. Pierre, he called his coach, his sports psychologist or whatever. And he's, Coach, can I get rid of this rock? I'm getting rid of this rock. I can't stand this. I get it now. And his coach tells him, no, keep it in there. You don't get it yet. And so, weeks go past or whatever. You understand the general layout of the way that this is going. Eventually, he gets to get rid of the rock, and then he's healed. Because of this 25-pound weight that he was carrying around physically, he's now become aware of what the issue was, which I believe the initial issue was that, like, he had gotten injured in a fight versus this fighter, so going back into the rematch, he couldn't get over the fact it's like, oh, well, if I do it this way, or something like that. So all these tough feelings and things I'm struggling with right now, I took on that same approach. And I picked up this rock, laying upon this beach. I know at least 4 people walked past it that day, me and the 3 dudes that were getting the crawdad trap side that I described. So at least 4 people walked past it. Never paid any attention before. I kind of forgot about it until right now, you know. Not a special rock by any means. I mean, just as special as any other rock I could have picked up. And I rubbed my thumb over it while I have it in my hand, in my palm, and I'm rubbing my thumb over it, squeezing it between my hand, kind of tumbling it around, fidgeting the way I do, and, I started to really focus on through my thumb as I'm pushing firmly down and up along the grooves of the rock. I was transferring all of the negative feelings I had, all of the names of the people that I couldn't evict from my thoughts, all of the wrong decisions, or not even wrong decisions because there is no coincidences, but the decisions that I haven't had time to fully understand why they played out that way, just for the day. Just for the day, I wanted them all in this rock. Now that I had this rock that had all of these important feelings and thoughts and people to me, I could feel it in my shoulders that it wasn't with me anymore, and for some reason the rock almost even felt heavier. Like it was a different rock, but it was the same rock. It's been in my hand the whole time. And as I'm looking at this rock and finishing up running my thumb up over the grooves, I said, I don't know how long this will work for, but for today I'm done. And I threw the rock into the water, And for the first time in weeks, whatever fog that had been in my mind, think of it as like a venomous fog that around every thought it would get its hands on and almost choke the life out of it. And if that's the way that you're thinking about everything, if that's the way that, the kind of natural course of your thoughts are rolling, you can't think about anything that will benefit you. You can't think about anything that isn't just gonna harm you. And that's not to say that sometimes you don't have to, like I said, like leaning blindly into religion without taking accountability. That's not true, or that's not my idea of true improvement or in terms of religion. So it wasn't that I wasn't trying to take accountability, or when I say, you can't think of nothing positive, sometimes you don't deserve to think of nothing positive because you hurt people. You know what I'm saying? But even though you did a bad thing, even though you do bad things, even though you could be the most evil person on the planet, most immoral monster there ever was, you need solace. You need solace for yourself, and if I can selfishly take that for myself, then there's no difference in the level of morality if anyone else did it for themselves either. I just needed a break from it. So I put it into this rock and I throw it away. And this rock that's only probably been walked by 4 people, it probably could have been walked by thousands. It's maybe been there. Who knows how long that rock had been on that beach. And this ordinary rock, I put years of special people and memories and thoughts, and I pour them into this inanimate object that isn't even inanimate. It's It's this fusion of moving atoms and all just combined by enough attraction that it has enough to fool our consciousness that it is a rock, and I throw it into the Nehalem River, and there it will sit. All those things that felt like I could never get them out of me, or I could never make my peace with. Just a rock that 4 people walked past. And now it sits at a place where no one will ever be able to find it again. And that doesn't mean that those things I got rid of, or I mean, you can never really rid yourself of them, but those things I accepted to sit down there forever, they'll always be with me, but it'll always just be some rock on a beach that people walk past, no different than the rest of the rocks. And one day some random kid that just drove an hour and a half from a different part of the state for no reason, he could have sat over closer to the creek where the water was running and picked up one of the other rocks. He could have sat farther back underneath the bridge so he wouldn't have been seen from up top, but no, he sat right next to that fire pit with the cigarette butt to the right of his left sneaker if I'm sitting crisscross applesauce, so at the top of my left toes on my right side. And I pick up the cigarette butt with my other 3 fingers. I just grab that rock. It could, you know. But all these things that I felt and that have haunted me for so long were so special. I couldn't get rid of them. I couldn't let them go. How could I let these things go? Without these things, how am I supposed to make up this whole beach? There's plenty of rocks. I feel like this is a disturbed episode. And I have to admit, I feel a lot better. I don't really know where to go from here. So I'm going to call it. A little shorter than I'm usually aiming for. Time sitting with myself, but I don't know. I got out what I needed to get out. And that's the whole point of this. Next time, I think I'll talk some more about my dreams. I worry that maybe if I share these journals about my dreams, then, kind of like me sharing that I was recording this with someone. Like, if I start bringing them up, then will there be an expectation for it? And then, if there's an expectation for something, I fucking hate doing it. You know what I'm saying? So then, will I even want to keep doing it? And then I'm benefiting so much from it right now that I don't want it to, lose that. But I don't know. I'll be back sooner than the last time. It's a promise. Hey, Friday the 13th. I always do this. I just stare off into space, man. One of my next goals is to get an actual mic. Maybe I'll set up the camera a little bit different. Just for the sake of the art, because that's what I want to do, and I think that would make it more interesting. All right, I'm doing my best. I wish you all the same. Signing off, James Patrick. I don't know what I'm